Hey guys, welcome back to Professional Weekenders YouTube channel. Today we're here in Boston, and today we're going to be exploring the Freedom Trail. So stick around, check it out, hit that subscribe button, and let's go.
Let's go. Alright y'all, like Louis said, we're here. We're in Boston. I am caffeinated. I took my Zyrtec this morning. We're gonna walk 4,000 miles and see all the things. So this guy spent a ton of time on ChatGPT learning about the different stops along the Freedom Trail. So apparently this has a lot of things to do with the founding of America. So good times.
Okay, so the Boston Freedom Trail is a 2.5 mile stroll through Boston, hitting all the historically significant sites. There are 16 sites. We're gonna throw in a bonus site, so make sure you stick around to see that one. But yeah, our first stop is right here in Boston Commons.
And my exciting fun fact of the day about Boston Commons is this is an off-leash dog park, so we're gonna say hello to all the dogs.
Okay.
Let's go.
So Boston Commons is America's oldest park, established in 1634. It was originally used for livestock grazing and military exercises. Today it's evolved into a place for public recreation, public gatherings, and public protests.
And puppies.
And puppies. During the Revolutionary time, this was a meeting point for the local militias, as well as protests against British rule and British tyranny. Okay, so it is like the biggest park in Boston. It's kind of similar to what you'd find in like Central Park in New York. Boston Commons in Boston is the equivalent. Apparently it's also a grave site, which is interesting. And of course, Christine found a bunny. All right, and here is Duck Island.
Not a part of the Freedom Trail.
No, but Christine wanted to come see the ducks.
I like ducks.
All right, so we're actually going to start our tour of Boston Commons by walking across the street to Boston Gardens, which is an adjoining park, very similar, because Christine wants to see the duck statue. So here is the duck statue. There's Christine taking her selfie with the ducks. This is a part of a sculpture called Make Way. Christine has joined the ranks. Yes.
And right behind me is the Soldiers and Sailors Monument.
This monument pays tribute to the soldiers and sailors from World War I and World War II.
Alright guys, right here is the start of the Freedom Trail, the very first brick. So you follow the red brick road for 2.5 miles. But first, the gift shop.
So who are you? What'd you buy?
Who am I? I am Christine, and I buy all the things.
What'd you get at the gift shop?
I got at the gift shop a Boston Green Pie sticker, because hello. And then I also got the duck magnet. That's Boston.
To commemorate the ducks.
Yes. Ducks are the best part so far.
Now that we've visited the gift shop as well as explored Boston Commons, we're going to follow the red brick path to our next stop, which is the Park Street Church. So let's go.
Let's go.
I misread my notes. The second stop is the Massachusetts State House. Not the Park Street Church. That's number 3.
All right, y'all, so right behind me is the Massachusetts State House. While this wasn't necessarily part of the Revolutionary War, it is a sign of what our founding fathers fought for. It is a gold dome, and you can see it from the skyline. It's a prominent staple of the skyline. Now, fun fact, I did not see this when we flew into Boston last night, but I think it's pretty cool. Who doesn't like a gold dome?
Yeah, so as Christine said, it's not actually part of the revolution, but it is a symbol and emblematic of the democratic principles that the founding fathers fought for, including self-governance and independence. Within the chamber is a wooden codfish that's hanging from the ceiling.
Don't know why.
Well, it represents Massachusetts' early maritime history, and just kind of tradition has been there for a long time. Okay. So now we're going to head on to our next stop, stop number 3, the Park Street Church. All right, and just down the street here, we've come to stop number 3, the Park Street Church. This was founded in 1809, and it is a historic meeting place for a lot of the Revolutionary War founding fathers, including Samuel Adams, Joseph Warren, Paul Revere, and John Hancock. So they would meet here and they would discuss the topics of the day and kind of contribute to the overall revolutionary fever that was building in Boston at the time. And directly behind the Park Street Church, we've come to the next stop, stop number 4. This is the Granary Burial Ground. So this is one of the oldest cemeteries in all of Boston and includes the graves of many notable historic figures, including Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Paul Revere.
So there's the tomb, but there's the monument.
All right, so we're going to go inside and look for some of those gravestones. Directly in the center of the cemetery, you see this large one that says Franklin. That is not actually Benjamin Franklin, but those are his parents.
So while Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston, he's actually buried in Philly.
Here's a gravestone for some of the victims of the Boston Massacre, We'll visit that site later on in the Freedom Trail. It's also right next to the grave site of Samuel Adams.
All right, y'all, so right behind me is King's Church, established in 1686. This church is Anglican in the Georgian style, so pretty cool architecture. And during the colonies, and during the Revolutionary times, it was a place of religious diversity, represented that amongst the colonies. All right, y'all, so right behind me is stop number 6. This is the King's Chapel Burial Ground. It is the oldest cemetery in Boston. And while not directly related to the Revolution, it does hold the remains of some pretty significant figures, including John Winthrop, who was the first governor of the colony, as well as Mary Chilton, who came over on the Mayflower. Also, right behind me is the Benjamin Franklin statue. It's stop number 7 on the as well as the Latin School. Latin School is the oldest public school in the country, and a lot of the revolutionary leaders during the colonial times were educated there. But fun fact, he did not found the Latin School. So Benjamin Franklin and the Latin School are just at the same location. They're not. He didn't like start the school.
All right, next stop on the Freedom Trail is the old Corner Bookstore, which is currently a Chipotle. This is where they used to do a lot of publishing for the Thickner and Fields Publishing Company. So they published lots of pamphlets and different various documents that fed to the revolutionary fever at the time, as well as later on the Midnight Ride and the Scarlet Letter were published here. The next stop on the Freedom Trail is the Old South Meeting House. So this is the location where they planned the Boston Tea Party. All right, and directly across the street from the Old South Meeting Point is a bonus stop on the Freedom Trail. So this is not an actual part of the Freedom Trail, and you only know about this place if you follow along with professional weekenders. This is the birthplace of Benjamin Franklin. This is obviously not the original house where he was born. That place did burn down, but this is the building that stands in its place now.
All right, y'all, so behind me is stop number 9. This is the Old State House. This is the oldest public building built in 1713 and is where they read the Declaration of Independence, which kicked off, as we all know, the American Revolution. All right, y'all, so stop number 11 on the Freedom Trail is the site of the Boston Massacre, which happened right in front of the Old State House. So this is where British soldiers shot into a crowd of colonists, killing 5. This is one of the things that sparked the revolution.
Stop number 12 on the Freedom Tour is Faneuil Hall. So this is known as the Cradle of Liberties. Here they held many debates on taxation, independence, the early Constitution. Later on, it also hosted speeches by Frederick Douglass to abolish slavery. And even in the 1960s, Dr. Martin Luther King spoke here. Now it's a shopping center and food court, so it's a great place to stop and grab lunch. All right, so we stopped to grab lunch. We got a Philly cheesesteak, even though we're in Boston. I know the thing here is probably to get the lobsters.
Lobster rolls, yeah.
Yeah, the lobster rolls, the lobster. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Those lobster rolls are about half the size of this, and they're like double the price.
At least.
So Philly cheesesteak roll, this is huge. It really can feed both of us for about $20. But we didn't skip out on all the Boston stuff because we got a Boston cream pie. All right, now we've made it to the next stop on the Freedom Trail. This is Paul Revere's house. So this was built in 1680. He purchased the house in 1770. This is where he lived in 1775 when he made his historic midnight run to alert the colonists that the British were coming. He lived here until 1800, so 30 years. So next up on the Freedom Trail, we have a statue here of Paul Revere, as well as the old historic North Church. Directly behind me, we have the Old North Church. This is the location was the end of Paul Revere's famous midnight ride, where he actually hung the lanterns to let the colonists know that the British were coming. Now we come to stop number 15 on the Freedom Trail. This is Cobb's Hill Burial Ground. This is another 17th century cemetery. There are several notable local figures from the Revolutionary War that are buried here, including members of the Mathers family, who were prominent religious leaders, as well as one of them was the Instance Mathers, was also the president of Harvard. So he's buried here. Directly across the street, they also have the Skinny Home of Boston, which recently sold in 2021 for $1.25 million. Can you imagine living in a house that tiny for that kind of money? I guess if you really like views of historic cemeteries, maybe that's the spot for you.
You have quiet neighbors.
Yeah, except for all the tourists that come by to see the cemetery.
Except those, yeah.
So the Freedom Trail does continue, but as you can see from that bridge in the distance, there is a pretty big river in the way. So the final stop on the Freedom Trail is Bunker Hill, famous Bunker Hill, where they had one of the Revolutionary War battles. That is about a mile away from here. So you can walk up and across the bridge. However, there's a bus nearby that is going to be a little bit quicker, as well as a little less walking. And
probably a bit safer.
Done a lot of walking already today, so we're going to take the bus. Here is the bus station where you can pick up the bus. Routes 92 and 93 would take you about as close as you can get to Bunker Hill. Although we've been sitting there waiting for about 10 minutes and the bus hasn't come. So Christine noticed that there is the Converse flagship store just down the street, so we're going to go do that. So we're gonna go do that, and she's gonna probably pick herself out some Converse merch. So now we're following the Converse trail.
That would be bigger.
All right, so we just wrapped up at the Converse store. We still need to get on the other side of the bridge of the river here, but I realized while we're waiting that if we cross over here, we can actually walk across. We can actually walk across a few of the locks here on the river and get an up close look at those. So that looks pretty neat. Looks like maybe a more adventurous way to cross the river. So we're gonna go check that out. So here are the lock bridges. So this is pretty neat. Get an up close look at the locks. And get to walk over top of them. So we are literally walking on the lock gates right now. So if there's a boat that comes through, you have to wait for the boat when obviously can't walk across when the gates are open. But yeah, it's pretty neat. And you get a look at some of the machinery and some of the gears that operate these locks. All right, I know, enough about the locks. Let's go on to Bunker Hill. We got about 3/4 of a mile to get there. All right, just like that, we are back on the Freedom Trail. Still got about a 1/4 mile to go. All right, and now we've come to the 16th and final stop of the Freedom Trail. This is Bunker Hill directly behind me. So this is the location of a famous battle in which William Prescott told the colonial army, famously, don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. So the colonial army occupied the high ground here, and they were running low on ammunition, and he did not want the colonists wasting their ammo shooting with those old inaccurate muskets. So he made sure that the British were in close range before the colonists opened fire. That way they can maximize their ammunition. So it's interesting now seeing Bunker Hill in the middle of this neighborhood. This neighborhood actually looks pretty old, but imagine back then this was just a field. Can't imagine an invading army coming up now trying to take this hill in the middle of this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. But today a monument similar to the Washington Monument, an obelisk, stands in the center of Bunker Hill to commemorate that battle. So the British actually won this battle, but it was a major turning point in the war because it kind of helped solidify the colonists' army against the British and really give them the resolve that they know that they can go toe-to-toe with those British soldiers and not completely get wiped. After the Battle of Lexington and Concord in 1775, the colonial army marched north towards Boston, and that's where they ended up here in Bunker Hill, directly in view of the British troops that were occupying Boston at the time. The colonial troops set up a small fort here on top of Bunker Hill. The British troops saw that fort and decided that they were going to attack. They launched cannon fire from land and from sea with ships nearby, marched across the river with 2,200 men, and over the course of several bloody attacks, eventually the British won the day. But it did cost them more than half of their men. The colonists surprised the British with their determination, their resilience, and eventually their orderly retreat. In all 13 colonies, we're going to go toe-to-toe with the strongest army and navy the world had seen up to that point. All
right, y'all, that's going to wrap up our time here on the good old Freedom Trail in Boston. Make sure you're hanging out with us and sticking around because we have some more videos coming up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And here's this guy with those pro tips.
All right guys, so here are your pro tips for the Freedom Trail. I'd say number one is make sure that you start your day early. It's a long trail. It says it's 2.6 miles. We actually ended up walking closer to 6 miles, but everything pretty much closes around 5. So definitely if you want to see everything, you're gonna have to start your day early, probably around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Pro tip number 2 is make sure that you do wear comfortable shoes because like I said, it is a long walk and my feet are aching. Definitely make sure that you have the most comfortable shoes that you own. And pro tip number 3 is reservations are not required for any of the stops on the Freedom Trail. However, there are additional admissions to things that if you wanted to visit, like the old courthouse, the old meeting place, or Paul Revere's house. Each one of those comes with its own ticket, and entrance is usually a few dollars, somewhere between $6 to $20 per person. That's going to do it for today, guys. Remember to hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Really help us out. And with that being said, we're out of here, and we'll see you next weekend.
Bye.
The birthplace of Benjamin Franklin.
The old state house. This is where, you know, you probably can't hear me through my sweater. Bye. That wasn't good. Try again.
All right.
You are such a juxtaposition with your wool and your Adidas hat. I don't even know what to do right now. Your Thailand shirt. Okay, that's probably a little bit better. Okay, now you look a little less.
I was thinking about it. My ears are cold.
I have one layer on. That's fine. All right, go ahead.
So we're gonna put in some B-roll footage over me talking about Boston Commons here, but
Look at that fluffy puppy with a stick.
So the Boston Freedom Trail is a historically significant, well, try it again. Okay, go.
Okay.
All right, so now that we've visited the gift shop as well as explored All right, now we're starting again. Okay.
All right, guys, so right behind me is, watch out for the curve.
I know the curb's there.
Okay.
And
John Hancock.
is it? Well, that's not good.
No.
Very similar, because Christine wants to see.
Who's Crystal?
Ahead. All right. So now that we finished, now that we've visited the gift shop, now I'm getting all shadowy. Damn it! Lighten up.
All right, y'all. So right behind me is King's Church, established in 1706. Right.
1686.
Okay. Very interesting church behind me. It is Anglican in terms of, so it is an Anglican. So it is an Anglican church. So it is an Anglican church. All right, y'all. So right behind me is Christ Church.
No, King's Church.
Okay.
All right, let's try it one more time because I think I was moving when you started. And you're about to get shot blocked by a truck.
So it is.
Wait till the truck passes. Okay, go.
All right, y'all. So right behind me is the old State House. This is where they read the Declaration of Independence, and is also the site of the Boston Massacre.
Boston Massacre is in front, so this is...
All right, y'all. So right behind me is the old State House. This is the oldest building, built in 17...
Oldest public building. And later on, Frederick Douglass gave a speech here about abolition. Later on, Frederick Douglass spoke here about abolition. Here about abolition. It's a hard word.
Abolishing slavery.
Okay. Frederick Douglass to abolish slavery. Speeches by Frederick Douglass to abolish... Those are hard words.
Your brain okay?
Yeah. The colonists surprised the British. The colonists surprised the British with their... What was I going to say? Determination.
To be clear, y'all, I did not know I was doing a book report today on vacation.